There we go. All right. Hey. Hello, welcome to today's Fertility Friday Q&A, where we discuss natural fertility and I answer questions from you guys that help to kind of inform you and give you the answers or my opinions on the topic. But my name is Heather Rodriguez. I'm a natural fertility specialist. My background is as an herbalist and nutritionist, and I specialize in helping to empower women on their fertility journeys, pregnancy journeys, motherhood, and so on. But my goal with these Q&As is to help to kind of expand on the topic and talk about the specifics of what you guys are needing help with right now in the moment. Sometimes during these live Q&As, your questions are too complex for me to answer. So I will invite you, if that happens, to just go ahead and message me, because a lot of times there's a lot of back and forth questions in order to actually provide you with some valuable information or support, because everyone is unique. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the comments and I will be answering them as they come in. And then I've got some questions that I always start with because everything is a little bit lagged on lives. So, okay, so there was a lot of really good questions that came in. Here's the first one. So if I don't get slippery cervical mucus, we'll just get right into the too much information topics. If I don't get slippery cervical mucus, does that mean that I'm definitely not ovulating? So that is such a good question. So when you're fertility charting, there's a couple different signs you're looking for. You're looking for cervical mucus. You're looking for temperature changes. Sorry, I'm trying to make it so my camera doesn't fall over. You're looking for cervical mucus changes, temperature changes, and a couple of other signs. So what's happening in your body in that first part of your cycle is your estrogen is rising, and that's stimulating the growth of the uterine lining. And it's also stimulating the maturation of the follicles, which will eventually mature and one will ovulate the egg. So if you aren't having cervical mucus, it's a possibility that ovulation may not be occurring, because part of that increase in cervical mucus is also caused by the increase in estrogen in your system. So healthy estrogen levels, and especially during that first part of your cycle, has to be there in order for ovulation to occur. And also, if you end up having low progesterone, that's another sign that ovulation possibly did not occur, because progesterone production comes from the follicle that changes in a corpus luteum, and then that releases progesterone during the second half of your cycle. So what can you do? What I would do is I would actually start temperature charting. It's called a lot of different things, but basically what you're doing is taking your basal body temperature every single day and you're charting it. If you are not good at that because you wake up at different times, you work a night shift, you don't like charting, there is a tool called Temp Drop you can strap onto your arm that will take your temperature for you every single day, and it will send it to your app, and then that goes into a chart and so on. The reason I suggest that is because that's the one way to know if you are ovulating or not, because you'll see a drop in temperature and then a rise from the progesterone. So that's the one way at home that you can confirm that you've ovulated. And that is so important. Like, I talk to so many people every single day, and all they're doing is OPK testing. Now, for some, that's fine. What that's going to tell you is when your fertile time is, or would be, what the possibility of ovulation happening, which is so important because you have to get your timing right. But if you're not ovulating, kind of missing the boat. So I really like fertility charting, at least for a period of time, so that we can know whether or not your body's ovulating. Because if not, that's something that definitely wants to be focused on. So I hope that helped to answer that question for you. Can you still be ovulating with no cervical mucus, even with a temp rise and a positive ovulation test? If you have that temperature drop happening and that rise, then you're ovulating. So no positive, are you saying no positive ovulation test or a positive ovulation? No, so that confirms ovulation. If that drop is happening and that rise is happening, that occurs because of ovulation. Clomid and metformin did not work for me. I want to try again on my own before pursuing IVF. What do you recommend? So that's a really great question, but it's also a gigantic question. And the answer is going to be different for each person. So what Clomid and metformin are doing, they're doing something kind of on a very specific scale. Clomid is helping the body to ovulate. Metformin is helping the body with blood sugar regulation, is what I'm assuming, that's what you're what they've been using them for you. So there's a lot of different lifestyle factors and different things that we would want to look at and address. So it's not like, oh, here's this herb, here's this supplement. It really is a whole lifestyle factor, because if we're wanting to support a healthy cycle that has ovulation occurring, that has healthy uterine lining, all the hormones, all the things, it really is a whole lifestyle. So I have a class called the 5 Pillars for Fertility Health. That would be a really good place for you to start. So you can kind of just understand, at least my philosophy and my approach to it is where we are looking at these different aspects of lifestyle and addressing those. The first one is going to be cleansing. So you mentioned the fertility cleanse. That is one place that we begin with the majority of people in one way or another. The second is going to be nourish, which is focusing on eating a nourishing, nutrient-dense fertility diet. I can't talk. The third is going to be protection, which is removing external factors such as xenohormones from your life. The fourth is going to be balance, which is hormonal balance. That's where a lot of like the herbs and supplements and stuff will come in. And then self-care, which is going to be about different things that you're doing to help take care of your body to increase circulation, reduce stress, all of those different things. So Mimi Melina, just DM me. I can send you a link to that. That's the place I would kind of begin, so you can kind of see the philosophy and the bigger picture. And then each of those different pillars is where things get specific based on each person, what your cycle's like, what your past experience has been. So definitely reach out. There are so many tools and so many options, which is super exciting. Is there a type of thermometer that's best? Yes, great question. So when you're doing your temperature charting, you need to buy a thermometer that does decimal temperatures. So digital thermometer. You can get those at the pharmacy, Amazon, super inexpensive, but it has to have like a point something. So your temperature might be 97.6. The next day it might be 97.8. It really, the temperature changes are really small, and the temperature changes are like by the decimal. They're not going to be by whole degrees. Sorry, I have to plug my phone in. By whole degrees all at once. So it's going to be all decimals. Good question. Okay. Oh my God, I'm so happy I'm able to watch this live from Birmingham. Hey, that's awesome. It's got to be like the middle of the night there, I would assume. How do I know for sure if I have endometriosis? So Sharon, it's, sometimes that diagnosis, I think there's a statistic I read the other day that to get an endometriosis diagnosis, it took like on average, like 6 years or something absurd. I don't think it's that. I'm not a doctor. So this is just from my understanding of talking with other people. I don't think it's that easy to diagnose exactly without doing exploratory procedures where they have like a little camera and it goes in and it looks, or they saw it during some type of other procedure. Now, how we approach something like that when it comes to natural health is we aren't so much focused on, okay, it's the endo, it's the PCOS, these types of things. We look at how it's represented in the body through imbalances. So in that case, a lot of times there might be very heavy cycles. There might be signs of like estrogen dominance where there's things that are happening because of that, and they just show up in different everyday life. Your body's expressing itself. So what we do is we help and focus on those aspects of it and help the body to deal with its natural ability to get rid of excess hormones. So we just make sure we have all the factors in place to help the liver to do that. We also would want to make sure that we are doing the things we can to protect the body from external factors that would stimulate the growth of excess estrogen or stimulate excess estrogen. So there's a lot of different steps to it. The good news is, so like with natural, you never get a diagnosis. We don't diagnose. We're herbalists, we're natural practitioners. We look and listen to what the body is saying, and we move towards balance. So the things that you're going to be doing that are very supportive are healthy for you either way. So it's kind of win-win if you are still having to, like, what steps can I take, but I don't know if this is going on. You look at your body, you listen to the signs, you take the steps, those things start to shift. That's how you know you're on the right path. So it's a lot different of approach than, okay, this is happening, surgery is going to happen. For us, it's like, okay, where's the body needing some extra support? Let's give it the things it needs to do what it does, because the body is a flippin' miracle. So let's give it the tools it needs to do those different things it needs to do. I hope I'm making sense. My tea doesn't work anymore. I've been drinking black tea. I don't drink coffee. And I feel like my black tea doesn't work. Or maybe it's just Friday. Yes, I have started implementing what you said in the 5 pillars thing. Got my menses much better last month. So only 1.5 days, but it's really good. I hope this month will be better. Awesome. That's great. Yeah. And it takes time. It's only been a couple of weeks, and that's great. You're already seeing a difference. Can ovulation occur even with endometriosis? Yes, it can. I've had recurrent miscarriages and I'm waiting for tests. Are a couple of glasses of red wine a week bad for me, or should I stop? So here's the thing with alcohol, and same with caffeine, falls into the same category. There's kind of different levels of kind of how strict or how big of life changes you're going to end up having to make. So this is just going to be straight talk, because I know a lot of people are like, this is such a bummer. I can't drink coffee. I can't drink or do alcohol. So there's going to be a certain point where a little bit is going to be fine because it's helpful for stress reduction, these different things. But then there's a certain point where too much alcohol actually can increase estrogen in the system. It can affect the health of your liver, all these different things that you want to be in really good shape for the conception journey. So it's going to be different for every person. I'm never going to be like, you can't ever do these things. But just realize that some of these things can be negatives to the health of your cells, the support and health of your liver. So it's going to be up to you. If it's something you do every once in a while, not a big deal. But if you are drinking every single day, that's definitely something to reconsider, because it's occupying the liver and we need that liver. We need that liver doing the things we need it to do. Also, when it comes to beer, a lot of those products are made with hops, which is one of the highest phytoestrogenic herbs, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but especially for men, if they're having some hormonal issues, it's a stronger acting one, whereas some other the phytoestrogens are gentle and supportive. So I'm sorry for the vague answer, but it's not ideal. But if you're having it like once a week, maybe not. It just kind of depends on what your tests come back with. I don't know. I don't want to be the person who tells you can't have your glass of wine. I feel like a horrible person. I have mild PCOS and just found out. What do I need to do? So Bernadette, there's a lot of steps when it comes to PCOS. There's going to be lifestyle factors. So reach out for my 5 pillars class link. I'll send that to you. But PCOS, one of the biggest things is managing. There's a lot of ways it shows up, and not everyone has insulin resistance, but a majority of women do. So just really looking at lifestyle and diet and managing your blood sugar levels through diet, which can definitely be done, and that needs to be done on a consistent basis. And then once you have that under control, there's a lot of other things you can do to help support your body. It's just, if that part isn't taken care of, a lot of the other steps kind of won't be as effective, because that part is not taken care of, and that's a major part. There are other aspects to it, but just send me a DM. I can kind of get you started on the path. Way too much to do during this Q&A. Hey, Gina. I don't know what LEEP is. Lavender haze, if you want to tell me what that is. I have no idea what that is. You're watching from Birmingham too, Bernadette. Meet Carrington. That's too awesome. Started to do juicing this weekend and got my juicer delivered today. Looking forward to drinking green juice. Awesome! That's so exciting. Yay. Maybe we should do some type of little juicing challenge soon. Get everyone going who's got the juicers. Okay, lots of questions about inflammation. So let's talk about that for a little bit. And then we'll talk about the follicular and luteal phase, Wander. Okay, so inflammation. So inflammation is something, this isn't like unique to the fertility journey. This is something that happens generally when there are different issues in the body. Inflammation is something that's kind of always present. It kind of lurks in the shadows. It's not necessarily a cause. It's kind of part of a reading of the environment of the body. So when different things that are happening in the body that are imbalances, there can be signs of inflammation. So we'll use digestion for an example, because I think a lot of people can relate to this one. When you get an upset stomach from eating something, and every time you eat that something, you get that upset stomach, that is one way that inflammation is apparent. So sometimes if that doesn't get addressed and you don't stop eating those things or help your body to digest them, it gets worse and worse and worse. And then the body is not able to digest that as well. And then proteins or different nutrients actually start leaking to the gut, and then you get leaky gut. So that's just one example. But that pain in that environment is inflammation. The body responding to something that's not supposed to be there. The way that the body's responding to a situation. So for instance, you stub your toe, that's healthy inflammation response. There's blood that rushes to your toe. There's, all these things kind of happening to help process the healing of that toe. So that's a normal inflammation response. The time that we start to get inflammation responses that I don't want to say or abnormal, but like that are too regular that we just don't need on a day-to-day basis, is when there's things that we're doing that are agitating to our body, and then the body is responding to that. Like, oh, there's an emergency. I need to go and have this whole response to help with that situation. So one of the best things to do, there's kind of two approaches to that. One is do what you can to remove what's irritating the body. So if it happens to be a food or it happens to be something that's growing that shouldn't be there, do the steps to help the body kind of deal with that, and use nutrients to help support healthy inflammation response in the body. What is that? Those are going to be whole fruits, vegetables. There's different compounds in those foods. You can just do a search on anti-inflammatory foods. There's some different supplements I do like to use to help to support a healthy inflammation response in the body. And what that means is you're just helping the body to calm down and not have such an overreaction to all these different things that are happening. But you also need to work on removing what is stimulating that response. So we're kind of all have some of that happening at different times. It's just more going to have that than others. And that's just something to keep in the back of your mind, kind of like healthy digestion, healthy going to the bathroom, drinking water. Those types of things are general foundational health for your body. So in order for your body to work well, you want it to not be having to deal with like putting out all these different fires. I hope that made sense. It's a really big topic, but what I find is when there are different imbalances, that's something that's kind of always there. Same with vitamin D deficiency. When you look at different studies, like correlative studies where they do studies on big groups of people and they like kind of connect the dots on things that are happening, vitamin D is there a lot of times, not only with fertility issues, but with other health issues. So a lot of the things I talk about, yes, I say fertility, reproductive health specifically, but seriously, it's like you could fill in the blank for all these other areas of life where you're needing to support and to balance yourself, because they are foundational lifestyle factors. And then there's specifics that you add in there. I hope that made sense. I feel like I'm speaking like a different language today. I've been talking a lot this week. What is the oldest age of a woman to conceive naturally? I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. You can read some of the success stories on our site. I think 52, but I do have to say that is not common. But I think she was 52. Thanks for explaining inflammation. I hope I helped. It's a very complex process that's in the body. I'm trying to simplify it. I think it's smoking and coffee, but don't know how to understand. Yeah, so smoking, definitely. Something that smoking does in the body has a big burst of free radicals every time you smoke, and those free radicals attack our cells. So that definitely can be a contributing factor. Alcohol can be a contributing factor to that as well. And so many other things like hydrogenated oils, processed foods. There's a couple xenohormones, chemicals. There's a couple other things that I'm missing, but there's like a list of, sugar, added sugars, processed sugars. That's a major one for inflammation, but there's a list. That's a lot of the stuff on the list. I used to get my period and now it's been missing for 10 months. So depending on what your age is, Wonder, sometimes that's going to be, I'm turning on filters, whoops. Sometimes that's going to be menopause starting. If you are not around that age, the easiest thing one thing you could do is to go ahead and get some hormone testing done to see what's happening. Hormone testing can confirm if menopause has begun. If it's not that, then definitely go to the doctor to have them kind of do some of their tests and explore different reasons, because there's a lot of different reasons a period may stop. And we just want to make sure kind of all those other things are out of the way that you would have to test for to know. But yeah, definitely go see your doctor, because 10 months is a long time unless you think you are menopausal. But then you could also get tests to confirm that. How often should I be doing castor oil packs? So Elizabeth, castor oil packs, I suggest to do the first 2 weeks of the cycle if you're actively trying to conceive. If you have heavy cycles, don't do them on your period. You don't want that to stimulate even heavier flow. I don't do them after ovulation, just because it's not that anything bad's going to happen. We just don't know. No one has done testing on castor oil packs in pregnant women. So I'm just like extremely cautious, because I educate through the internet. I'm not, some of you I'm working one-on-one with, but I'm not like there with you. So we just don't want to stimulate the uterus too much at that time. We want everything to just be very relaxed and receptive. So long story short, the first 2 weeks of your cycle. Is 11-day luteal phase too short? I have 24 to 26 day cycle. I ovulate on day 11 or 12. Okay, so Sharon, that is a really good question. So it possibly could be, it depends on when you are ovulating. So some people will have a 24 to 26 day cycle and they automatically assume it's luteal phase, which a lot of cases it is. That's a little bit more of a popular term that you might hear. But the chances of you having a short first half of your cycle, the follicular phase, can happen as well. So I like to, when I see like really short cycles, I like to support the whole cycle and not just focus on the luteal phase, because sometimes it's going to be a little bit on both. If you're fertility charting, you'll know exactly when you are ovulating, so you can see where that lands. But you want there to be plenty of time for the traveling of the fertilized egg, the embryo, to go into implant and all of that. So I personally have seen something I really like doing for it is drop cycle method, because that works on both the follicular and the luteal phase to help support both of those to be healthy lengths. Vitex is another one you were just mentioning. That's been shown to be supportive if it's the luteal phase, but I like to support a broader picture because there's generally more things at play than one thing, if that makes sense. So if we're just focusing on luteal phase, you got to kind of think like, why is my cycle so short? Does my thyroid need support? Does my pituitary need support? There's, these other glands that are sending messages for the hormones to do their thing throughout the month. And all you're seeing kind of the end result of some of these other factors. So I like to support more things than just, okay, let's get that luteal phase longer. Whereas Vitex is awesome for that, but you got to think like, why is the luteal phase so short? It's not because you have a deficiency in Vitex. So just looking at some of those factors, because one other thing to consider is if you aren't ovulating, then the body's not producing very much progesterone. So then the luteal phase could be short as well. But if you're not ovulating, there's some other things that we have to look at and support. Progesterone isn't one of those. I just tried to roll up my computer screen. Oh my goodness. Should you use castor packs while pregnant? No. Nope. How to lower FSH. So I get FSH questions so much. So when it comes to FSH or AMH, or like when you're getting a lot of these very specific things, and then you become very fixated on that one fact about your fertility or hormonal health or whatever it is. What I'm always doing is wanting you guys to zoom out and to really look at the bigger picture, because that is the microscopic picture. It's a flash and moment in time of your hormonal state based on the current testing we have with our current technology. So what I do is I go and I look at the bigger picture. I make sure that all 5 pillars are being supported. And then we can kind of zoom in once we know more about the cycle and how that's showing up in other areas of your life. That's more my focus, is just going for hormonal health, overall health, and getting you as healthy as you possibly can be, more so than fixating on that specific number. Do I have advice on resetting the body after IUD removal to promote regular periods? So Brianni, go ahead and reach out to me. I just have more questions too about what that exactly means for you. So I just have to, these are really long, so sometimes it takes me a minute to read through them before I can answer it. Does seed cycling actually help? I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't do seed cycling, not because I think it's rubbish. I just don't do it. There's so many different tools and things. There's the things that I use that I know works, that I love using, and so everyone kind of has their own thing. So I'm just not the right person to ask for that. I think there's probably people on here that could share with you, if you want to, in the comments, their experience with seed cycling and how that's worked for them. Just not my area of expertise. Kind of like that vagisteaming, cool tool, wonderful tool, but it's just not my area. It's not the tool that I use. There's just so many. I just want to give you guys like 20 things to do. I kind of pick what my favorites are. Would a keto diet be good for increasing fertility? So Kathleen, my personal opinion on the keto diet is it is not one that I would go towards as a specific fertility diet. I know there's other people out there that would probably disagree with me, totally fine. But when it comes to fertility, I believe in having all the food groups, having as many nutrients as possible. What I find, especially with the people in my life who have done keto, is that at first they end up beginning like really good. And they're just like, yes, they're doing it right, all those things. And then they go down the road and they end up eating just a lot of bacon. They end up making bread out of cheese. And that ends up being a majority of their calories. Whereas while they're getting the fat and everything they need for ketosis, I'm more concerned about all the nutrients and the antioxidants, anti-inflammatory compounds, and the phytonutrients found in foods that are the micro that we barely even understand with our current science, that are doing so many different things in the body. So that's more my approach, is flooding the body with nutrients, making sure we have all of our vitamins and minerals, fiber being extremely important. Yes, fats are important, but it's so easy to get your healthy fats on a daily basis. So that's my 2 points on the keto diet, my personal opinion. I also, going into pregnancy, I just think it's important to have a wide variety of nutrients. But there's a lot of rivers to the ocean, guys. That's all I have to say. Does green juice help? Does green juice help with what? So green juice is awesome. Yeah, I absolutely love green juice. If you can't do green juice, I like doing green powder. Do I think the apps are accurate when it comes to ovulation? So are you temperature charting? And it's, sorry, my son's home, if you can hear him playing with his Blue's Clues. If you're talking about an app where you are taking your temperature and it's being transferred to that app, yes. If you're just using an app where you put in your period day, and then it's telling you when it thinks your fertile time is, no, that is absolutely not accurate in any shape or form. It's just putting you into a pattern of what textbook would be. So I would just need to know more of how you're using that app. Can you have a positive ovulation test and still not ovulate? So if you are talking about an OPK test, let me know. What the OPK test is testing a hormone that increases right before your ovulation time. It does not mean you're ovulating or that you will ovulate. It's just going to tell you when your fertile time is. And it's a huge misconception. The amount of times I talk about OPK tests on a daily basis is kind of insane. Not saying that they're bad. It's just not guaranteeing ovulation. But knowing your fertile time is extremely important. How much does 1 or 2 cups of coffee impact conception at my age? I'm 42. Should I stop all caffeine or am I fine? So Lillian, if you want to go down this rabbit hole, just do a search on PubMed for caffeine estrogen or caffeine fertility, coffee fertility. There was a study there that was showing that more than 2 cups of coffee a day definitely was increasing estrogen. It also was showing that, not to freak you guys out, there was a higher rate of miscarriage, but I think that's probably in people who have some other situation that's going on that causes those miscarriages, it not being good for them. But do some research on that. So more than 2 cups of coffee a day was shown to not be beneficial for a couple of different reasons. How can you stimulate ovulation when your period is not on a regular 26 to 32 day cycle? So just getting your hormonal health supported in general, and kind of seeing and getting a pattern for that. Also tracking your ovulation and knowing if you're ovulating or not, when you are. Also, fertility charting is going to tell you so many other things, the beginning part of your cycle, second part of your cycle, that will give a window to your fertility health, your hormonal health. And it gives you tools so you can move forward, especially when you're working with someone such as myself or, someone else. That tool, or your doctor, that tool is going to be really helpful. Knowing you're ovulating and confirming that, priceless, right? But it also is going to show us, is your progesterone rising? Are your temperatures always low? Maybe should talk to your doctor about your thyroid. Your first half of your cycle is really short. Okay, let's help build that up so we have enough time to build up healthy uterine lining. So there's so much that you can learn. And I love it because it's self-empowerment. The tool is free. And I know for some people, when you've been trying to get pregnant for a while, you just quit that because it's super stressful. I totally get that. But when you approach it as like, okay, this is going to tell me something about my body, not just if I'm ovulating or not, at least for a couple of months when you're working on a specific program or specific purpose, I find it super helpful. Can't drink black tea in the morning, makes me queasy, trying to get off coffee. Yep. Yeah, I go on and off of black tea. Is raw a nice way to start the fertility diet? I started with maca cheeses. I'm not sure what to see and feel. Yeah, Astrid, I don't think raw food is like a raw food diet is necessary in any shape or form. There's definitely benefits to it because of the nutrients, but I see a lot of digestive issues come out of it, and a lot of obsession to the point of it being stressful or people not getting enough calories. So for me, I think having a lot of wide fruit of raw fruits and vegetables, as well as steamed vegetables, it's just that variety. I think that's really important. And then that 80-20 rule, which is 80% is perfect. And then 20% you're a human being. So yeah, once in a while you're gonna have dessert. Once in a while you're gonna have, whatever it is. But it's just that consistency of the mostly good choices that will be good. Claudia was saying she gets a positive ovulation test, but when she gets her blood work done, she ovulates once a year. Okay. A good app for ovulation. I'm not the person to ask that to. I would love suggestions if anyone has suggestions. Yeah, I know Temp Drop is a tool you can use with your apps. I'm always sending people to Fertility Friend. I don't know if they have an app, but they have a website that is phenomenal in learning how to fertility chart. It's totally free. And you can look at other people's charts. So you can learn, like, what does a PCOS chart look like with ovulation? What does a pregnancy chart look like? What does a chart with luteal phase look like? So you can just learn to educate yourself how to read your own charts. How long should you try natural treatments before going to a fertility specialist? That is up to you. That is your gut instinct, but know that natural lifestyle changes take time, especially when you're working on hormones. I generally tell people, do not even look for big changes for at least 3 months at the minimum. So there's two different aspects. When you're working on hormonal health, it takes months for everything to line up because it is such a complex system. There's so many different hormones that are happening. You're going to start seeing little things at the beginning, like little improvements, like, oh, I didn't have cramps this cycle. Holy cow. Or I didn't bite my husband's head off, or woo, my libido is better. Like, these little things you're going to start seeing. But to see like the bigger change is going to take some time. So 3 to 6 months for that. Also, when you're working on egg health and things like that, know that the things you're doing today impact the egg you will ovulate. I almost said a year from now. 3 months from now, that's it. Only 3 months. So that takes time and that takes consistency. So with that information, knowing that, okay, we're going to try this for 6 months or whatever it is, then we're going to see the doctor. You could also go to see the doctor, get testing done, talk to them about your options, then decide what direction you're going to go, because you have to understand too, guys, just because you're going for IVF or IUI does not, like, there's statistics with that too. It's not like 100% chance that that's going to even work. Not to put a damper or anything on things, just know that that's not like, okay, we're leaving, with a baby today. All the things that you're doing to help support your fertility naturally are going to benefit, even if you need to go and do medical assistance. So it's win-win either way. So if you try something, say for 6 months, and you've been doing it, you're like, okay, we're ready to go, get medical assistance for this. Your body is in such a better place for that investment into that procedure than it was before. So win, 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 win. I'm not sure how to do fertility charting. Go to fertilityfriend.com. They have a whole free course that will teach you. I am not an expert in it. I just am a big proponent of doing it. Is it better to use honey, maple syrup, or stevia to replace sugar? Stay away from. So it depends on what's going on. If you're experiencing like blood sugar things and you have to watch your blood sugar levels, definitely stick with the stevia and the monk fruit type stuff. No added sugar. You can do fruit sugar, things like that. If that's not really an issue for you, then all of those are great. Honey, maple syrup, stevia, monk fruit. Those are all things that we use in our household. I stay very low sugar, like I do stevia and monk fruit, because I personally have hypoglycemia. So I'm like, woo, and then I'm like wanting to eat candy bars and candy and stuff all the time. So I have to be pretty strict about my sugar so I don't start craving it. But if blood sugar is not a concern or issue of yours, yeah, those are fine, I think. All right, so my periods are missing in action. I'm 24. Yeah, so I would visit your OBGYN. I would let them know what's going on, see what testing they can do. If they're not supportive and they brush you off, find another doctor that listens to you, so that can do some testing and see what's going on. What's the best way to figure out when you're ovulating? Fertility charting. And I talked mostly, this whole Q&A has been about that, Shara. So if you want to watch the replay, I go into a lot more detail on that. How do I know if my body's producing enough progesterone? So fertility charting is one insight to that. There's also home progesterone tests you can take from a company called Proov, Proov. And that's an at-home test, which is super cool. That is new. Like 10 years ago, you couldn't do that. 5 years ago, you couldn't do that. Is oat milk okay to use in fertility smoothies? I think so. Is basal body temperature the only way to confirm? Another way to confirm, Proov does have a test. I think they use 2 types of tests. You have to look it up. I haven't really looked into that one. Also, ultrasound is another way to confirm. Can I explain follicular and luteal phase, please? Yeah, so you have your cycle. When I say cycle, it's the whole cycle. Like, here's your period till the beginning of your other period. So that's the whole cycle. Textbook is 28 days. So if you're 28 days, great. If you're not, don't freak out. That's just textbook. The first half, so we've got your period is happening, right? So that's the first 7 days, the first week of your cycle. You're menstruating generally. Everyone's is different, but that's generally 5 days long, 6 days long, whatever. So that's the beginning of your cycle. The follicular phase includes the period and the time up until ovulation. So during that time, your follicles are maturing. You have estrogen on the rise. That's the time of estrogen, that when it's her time to shine. She's helping to grow uterine lining. And also the maturation of the follicles. So the follicles, once they mature, an egg will ovulate. And then when that egg ovulates, the follicle it ovulated from turns into a corpus luteum, which then produces the progesterone that takes you into the second phase. So ovulation has occurred. We have progesterone being released. And we have this uterine lining. So now that progesterone is being released, the maturation of the uterine lining has paused or slowed down, and the progesterone is maintaining that uterine lining, so that is a warm, cushy, amazing place for the embryo to go and to attach. So we're just kind of waiting for that. Day 10, day 11, everyone's different. Embryo comes down and attaches, and then pregnancy occurs and progesterone continues to rise. If there is no embryo that comes to attach, then prostaglandins are released, and it starts the body in contracting and shedding the lining of the uterus, and your period begins, and then all your hormones drop and you get crazy. You don't have to. You don't have to live with that. But anyways, that happens for some people. And then your period begins. And then there's the whole cycle that happens again. So that is follicular phase is the first half of your cycle, when it's all about the follicles maturing. The second half is the luteal phase, when it's all about waiting for the arrival of an embryo. Is the egg in good quality if you get pregnant within 2 months of trying to improve health? I have no idea, Lala. If you got pregnant within 2 months of trying to improve health, congratulations. So when an egg is exposed to your inner environment, like your eggs are always with you, you're born with a certain amount of eggs. It's going to be during that period of time that it's maturing to ovulation. So everyone might be different. Maybe yours were perfectly healthy to begin with. I'm not saying that everyone has egg health issues. All I'm saying is that's when you can support them, you can protect them, because they're being exposed to your lifestyle and your environment. So it's a good time to have antioxidants, have very nourishing foods, having lots of oxygenated blood going to your body, just being in really good health. What foods should someone with PCOS focus on? What foods? So when it comes to wanting to help support healthy hormonal balance and healthy blood sugar levels, I'm always looking at having protein, fats, and high fiber foods, kind of is what makes up a meal. So that could be vegetarian or animal-based proteins, healthy fats, avocado, healthy salad dressings with healthy oils, and then vegetables, steamed vegetables, vegetable noodles, there's all kinds of forms you can do that in. And then you can have whole grains with that. Whole grains or not whole grains, up to you. But whole grains are still, as long as they have the fiber, are going to be great and healthy. So that's kind of what to look at. Whole foods, whole foods, whole foods, whole foods. Is there a way not to get crazy? Please tell us. So yes, there's a way to not have PMS. There's a way to not bite people's heads off during that part of your cycle. That's kind of one aspect I look for. That's yes, let's support hormonal health, because that's a huge fluctuation in hormones during that time, and that can be helped and supported and smoothed out. I am a walking testimonial for that. My poor husband. We're good now. How are maca pills different than the fertility green smoothie, since the smoothie kit has maca in it? They're the same. One's just powder, one's capsules. So if you're someone who does the smoothies every day, powder is going to be perfectly great for you. If you're someone who does them once in a while, the pill, whatever keeps you most consistent, is kind of the whole point. Is folic acid enough for pregnancy? I have normal weight. I have no idea your folic acid levels, but just knowing that foods like green leafy vegetables and beans are all foods that are very high in folate. Also, your prenatal multivitamin is going to have folate in it, so that's something to consider. But it's actually a nutrient that's very easy to get from food. All right, I'm going to wrap this up in a second. Does being overweight affect fertility? So Priscilla, I know that there's I hear from a lot of people who are like, I won't be able to do my IVF until I lose a certain amount of weight. My doctor's saying I have to be at this certain BMI. So it's not necessarily that being overweight specifically affects fertility. There's just a lot of other factors that might come along with that. So some women might have kind of estrogen dominance because estrogen gets stored in the fat of the body. So they might tend to have more estrogen because of that. There also could be blood sugar support that's needed depending on what the diet's like. So there's kind of more just the lifestyle factors that I think play a part in it. But what we see is once people make these changes with the whole food diet, with these other things, they get more energy, they get more motivated, and then they continue to make these other lifestyle changes. So it can, but it's not because, I don't believe it's because of a specific weight. I believe it's because there's a certain lifestyle and just different things that are happening in the body that either led to that weight gain. A lot of stuff's hormonal with weight gain. So there's just a lot of factors when it comes to it. It's not just like, black and white like that. Okay, I'll end with this one. Can a woman of 45 years old get pregnant? So whenever someone asks me that question, the first thing I ask them is, are you ovulating? And if you are, how do you know? How are you tracking it? The other factor is, what are your hormones like? Have you had hormone testing done? Because it's not, I don't like just putting a specific age on it. Yes, your chances and the percentages go down with age. It's just what happens with time. But one 45-year-old to the other 45-year-old, like their life and their health and their life up to this point are completely different. Their hormonal profiles are completely different. So I don't like to necessarily base it on that, but I do focus on 35 and older. I do focus on egg health, flooding the body with nutrients. And then we focus on helping to support hormonal health. Now, I do have to say, if menopause has begun, there is nothing natural that can turn menopause around. There just isn't. So there's that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you found today's talk helpful. I try to keep these to 15 minutes and that one was 45. So, oh well. But I hope you guys have an awesome day.